now. The commentators are Barry Sheen and Nick Harris.
The Yorkshire pair of Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt lead the championship by 26 points, so every chance of winning the championship in this penultimate round from Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon on 168, and Steve Abbott and Sean Smith third on 154. Steve Webster, Tony Hewitt. Next week, in just 8 days' time at Hockenheim in West Germany, they have a chance of also winning the World Championship. They're just 8 points adrift of the French pair, Alain Michel and Jean-Marc Fresque, who lead the championship at this very moment in time. So every chance of a unique double for Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, the 26-year-old from Yorkshire. So, Steve Webster, a pole position. Alongside him, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. In third place, Steve Abbott and Sean Smith. And in fourth place, completing that front row, Frank Rathel and Kerry Chapman, the European champions. So the grid being readied. A push start for Sidecars. Not an easy job here for the passenger, who really has to push very hard before hopping aboard. Red light being shown. 10 laps, 29.27 miles of the Silverstone circuit, they're away. It's a good start by Webster. Seems to have taken the lead up the outside, but coming under pressure from Nixon as they come towards Cox Bend. That's number 3, Nixon in the lead. Steve Webster in second place, Frank Rathel third. But at the moment, it's Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon who are second in the championship, taking the lead as they go through Cox Bend. Steve Webster in second place, and Frank Rathel, European champion, in third place. But a good start there for Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. Obviously, they've got to beat Steve Webster today, so they're getting away as quick as they can. They've certainly done that. I was chatting to them before the race, had a lot of problems in practice with their Yamaha motor, but they've got it sorted out at the moment. So it's Derek Bayley in the lead, 38-year-old from Folkestone in Kent, and Bryan Nixon, his passenger, 27-year-old, the passenger, 168 points, second place in the championship. They lead at the moment, but it's very tight indeed as they come down the hanger straight. 3 outfits together, and it's Steve Webster trying to dive down the inside, but also Frank Rathel getting down the inside of them. As they come into Stowe, it's Rathel who takes the lead. So Rathel leads, Bayley in second place, and Webster in third place. Barry Sheen, I know you've never raced the sidecar, but this is exciting stuff, and they do make very good racing around Silverstone.
They sure do, and now the latest generation of sidecars are incredible because the chassis are almost like a Formula 1 design. In actual fact, they use Formula 3 tyres. They're so fast, in actual fact, on some of the circuits in England, they're quicker than the 500cc Solo.
That's right, Steve Webster, in fact, is over half the circuits he's raced on this season. He's lapped faster in the Solo. But he's having trouble here as they come into Woodcut. It's Steve Webster trying to snatch the lead on the inside as they race through Woodcut about 110 miles an hour. And now it's Webster that leads, Rathel in second place and Bayley in third place. Tremendous action through Woodcut to start their second lap. But now it's Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt on the LCR Yamaha out in front, number 1. But Rathel hanging on as tight as he dare with New Zealander Kerry Chapman in the chair of their outfit. And in third place at the moment, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. But Webster really has had a marvellous season. Webster's had a marvellous season. But there we are. Bad luck. Steve Abbott and Sean Smith, they're currently lying third in the championship. They had problems on the start line. They pulled alongside the grid. They're obviously out of the race. A wretched end to the season for them. Steve Abbott and Sean Smith. And back to the front. Hectic action still, but it's Steve Webster in the front as they come down the hanger straight, and Frank Rathel trying to get inside him as they go into Stowe, as he did on the first lap, and he's done it. It's Rathel just in front. Dangerous manoeuvre as he dives in front of them, but he's through safely through Stowe. Webster right behind him, and Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon just a few inches behind them, waiting for any mistake by the 2 leaders. Side by side as they come towards Club Corner, but it's now Webster who's retained the inside position, so he's back in the lead, but Rathel holding on tight, and Bayley going a little wide there, but 1, 2, 3. The 3 men really are doing so well in the championship. That's Webster, Bayley and Rathel. But Webster leading as he has done so much this season. He's still in the chance for that World Championship. He's the current British champion. He was 4th in the World Championship last year. They really have had a marvellous year, but coming under pressure then as they come into Woodcut, and Rathel just sneaking his way through, pushing him wide as they go through Woodcut. Side by side, 120 miles an hour as they go through Woodcut Bend. Tremendous action as they start their second lap. Really, Barry Sheen, I think they touched then as they went through Woodcut Bend.
Well, it did look pretty close, but Rathel, he doesn't seem to have the power on the straight, but he has the right name on the fairing. His right sponsor is called Stoppers because he's outstanding on the brakes.
So there we are, slow motion action from as they touched as they went through Woodcut Bend, but it's now Webster still in the lead, Rathel in second place, and Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon just hanging back a little bit as they're waiting for the action. They go through now into Chapel Curve, down into Hanger Straight, and it's still Webster leading. Just opening up a little bit of a gap now. Well-tuned, highly tuned engine, probably just pulling away a bit from Frank Raffle and Kerry Chapman, and Bayley and Nixon hanging in there tight, trying to get along the inside them as they come into Stowe, and certainly Stowe where all the action has happened before, but it's Webster with Tony Hewitt working overtime, got his knee over the outside of the sidecar, outside of the wheel as they go through, now tucking into the fairing along the short straight, and then into Club Corner. So after 2 laps, Webster and Hewitt lead. Second place, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. Third, Raffle and Chapman. Fourth, the Japanese pair of Kumagaya and Makakuchi. That's an interesting combination. Fifth, Barry Brindley and Simon Birchall. His usual passenger, Chris Jones, not with him at the moment. He's on his honeymoon. Probably a very wise move. On his honeymoon at the moment, not in the sidecar chair, but this is the leaders as they come in to start their 3rd lap. Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt through Woodcote, side by side. Tremendous battle for second place between Frank Raffle and between Derek Bayley. Frank Raffle, European champion, 28 years old, from Preston, and his passenger Kerry Chapman, New Zealander, also done a little bit of road racing on a solo, but these two putting on a tremendous battle for second place. But at the moment it's Bayley just holding the advantage, as he did at Thruxton 2 weeks ago in the 17th and the 16th round of the championship. 2 second places for him then, both led by Steve Webster, but Webster's still in the lead, opening up a gap of now some 15, 20 yards, but it's Bayley holding off Raffle. But this is desperate stuff. Barry, you were telling me earlier, you've never been in a chair of a sidecar. You were asked once by world champion Rolf Phelan, you said, no thank you.
Well, judging by this, can you blame me? I couldn't ever manage it. It scared me to death. I feel sorry for Raffle because he definitely doesn't seem to have the power down the straight, but he's a demon on the brakes.
But putting up a tremendous performance through the bends. He's now right in behind Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. They're in second place. That's Frank Raffle and Kerry Chapman in 3rd place, current European champions. And Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt just opening up a little bit of a gap, just enough probably to give them a little bit of margin of safety. But this is the battle for second place. Derek Bayley, the 38-year-old from Folkestone in Kent, and his passenger Bryan Nixon, 27 years old. They've had a good season in the Grand Prix. For the first time they were on a Grand Prix rostrum in the last round. They finished 3rd in Sweden. They're 2nd in the championship at the moment on 168 points. And they're just opening up a little gap on Frank Raffle at the moment. But this is the leader, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, as they come through to start their 4th lap. Webster leads through Woodcote. Start his 4th lap. Passenger Hewitt working hard. And now the margin some 20, 30 yards. Just a little bit of a gap opening up, and also a gap opening up between the battle for 2nd and 3rd places, as Derek Bayley opening up some 20 yards on Frank Raffle. Safely through Cops Corner. Webster on his way. Really has a chance, Barry, of clinching the World Championship. Perhaps not this year, but at least next year. And we've always had good sidecar races there in Britain, haven't we? While things in the solo classes haven't been so good, the sidecar men have always ploughed on well.
Well, Steve Webster is outstanding. He's a very hard trier, and he's really making a good job of it because he's working very hard. He's got a good sponsor, and he puts everything he can into his racing, and he deserves to get a good result.
They're on their 5th lap, coming down the Hanger Straight. Perfect illustration of sidecar racing, as one, the sidecar rider and the passenger, absolutely together as they go through Stoke Corner at something approaching 110, 120 miles an hour, drifting their LC Yamaha out just a little bit wide. They look comfortably in the lead, though. Passenger Hewitt now tucking in to the fairing, then up and out as they come to the right-hander at Club Corner, over the back wheel of the sidecar to get a little bit more traction, and sliding away. In the 2nd place, Derek Bayley holding off now Frank Raffle, and a gap opening up as they come up the hill, past the farmhouse, under the bridge, into Woodcote to start their 6th lap, the end of 5 laps, so half distance for Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, who are leading under the bridge. And this is Webster and Hewitt. No, in fact, this is 2nd place, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. They're holding on well now. I spoke to them, as I said earlier, but they have a lot of problems in practice with their Yamaha motor, but certainly they seem to have sorted that out now, and they're giving Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt a tough time, as they have done all season. But that gap now, Barry, opening up to just wide enough just to be comfortable for Steve Webster, and he's not going to have any problems on the last lap, as we saw with the solos with Roger Marshall and Roger Burnett.
I wouldn't think so, because Steve's, as I said, he's raced in the Grand Prix all the year, and he's got a lot of experience now, so he's used to racing with running with the top runners in the Grand Prix, so I think it looks to me like he's got it pretty well shaped.
Of course, Steve Webster knows the Silverstone circuit well, and after 5 laps, it's Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt leading. Second place, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. In third place, Frank Rathel and Kerry Chapman. And an interesting fourth place, that's Dennis Bingham and John Gibbard in the chair. His wife, who he usually rides with, Dennis Bingham, Julia Bingham, fell out of the chair at Silverstone 2 weeks ago and broke her arm, so it's a new combination, but they're doing very well indeed, up into 4th place. But these are the leaders, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, down the short straight from club, but now definitely, without a shadow of doubt, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon are closing up on them as they go through club corner and up the hill and out. Perfect illustration of the sidecar passenger working there, Barry, getting his leg right over the back wheel of the sidecar to get more traction. They're brave lads, aren't they? They also have to be very, very fit.
Really, if that was me laying in the back, I'd be laying there with my hands over my visor. No, they are incredibly fit. You know, if you get a passenger that doesn't do anything properly, it's terrible the result. I can tell you.
So, Steve Webster and Bryan Nixon are now really closing up. Sorry, Steve Webster and Derek Bayley closing up very tight indeed. It's Webster still leading as they go through Cox corner, but now drifting away. Bryan Nixon in the chair of Derek Bayley's outfit, putting everything into it. They've closed right up on the leaders, and it really does look like a very good battle for the lead in the closing stages. In fact, Nixon now Bayley right up behind Webster. Is he going to have a go at him as they go into Beckett's? No. Happy to stay behind up that little short straight, round Chapel Curve, into Hanger. But Webster really having his work cut out now by Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon as they come down the Hanger straight. A favourite sidecar overtaking move is to get down the inside and outbrake them. Will Bryan Nixon try at this lap? They're on the 7th lap on the 10-lap race. No, he seems quite content at this moment. They go past the back mark, but now he sneaks out of his slipstream, trying to nip through, but Webster blocking his way through at Stowe. Something approaching 100, 110 miles an hour as they drift their way through. And Steve Webster seeing the danger and blocking him as he tries to go through. Good stuff, Barry. Well, there we are. Barry's almost fallen off his chain, enjoying it. So this really is good stuff, and tremendous stuff by Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. They're giving Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, who really are the kings of sidecar racing in this championship at the moment, a tremendous battle for their money. Webster and Hewitt still in the chance of the World Championship. They're the current British champions. They finished 2nd in the Shell Oil's British Grand Prix here in August behind the current World champions Egbert, Stroyer and Bernard Schneiders. So Bayley doing well, hanging on tight. They're now just starting their 7th lap. It's a 8th lap, I'm sorry. It's Derek Bayley really in tight now behind Steve Webster, trying to get the inside as they go into Cox corner, not quite doing it. They're coming in amongst the back markers now, Barry, and that's going to prove interesting because they're a little bit wider than solos, aren't they?
Well, yeah, with a sidecar, you're really in trouble if you get stuck amongst the back markers, because the idea is if you get a back marker, you just poke him in front of the other guy before you get to a corner, and there's just no chance. It's not like a solo where you can nip up inside or outside. Once you're committed with one of these things, there's no way out.
So positions after 7 laps, it's that Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt still lead, but it's mighty close with Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon 2nd, Frank Rathel and Kerry Chapman 3rd, Kumagaya Mukachichi, the Japanese crew, in 4th place, Dennis Bingham and John Gibbard 5th, and Roy Gardner and John Stevens in 6th place. This is the battle though for the lead. And it's Derek Bayley trying all he knows now to get past Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt. Bryan Nixon in the chair of his LCI outfit, working flat out. Webster knows the position though. They've had a good hard look behind them. Hewitt with his back leg over there, and Bayley going a little bit wide there as they go through Club Bend, up the hill towards the farmhouse, under the bridge to Woodcote to start their 8th lap. But it's Webster still leading, 26-year-old from Yorkshire. His passenger Tony Hewitt's a 34-year-old Yorkshireman. They've dominated British sidecar racing for the last 2 years. They really have got their work cut out here as they come through Woodcote again. Number 1, Steve Webster leads. 2nd, Derek Bayley in 2nd place. So 8 laps completed. Steve Webster leads, 2 to go. Derek Bayley right behind him though. He's going to make his move surely any moment now as they go through Cox. 2 laps to go. Some 5 miles of this Grand Prix Silverstone circuit. Webster has a long, hard look behind him at Derek Bayley. Really doesn't have to look very hard because he couldn't be a lot closer, some 5 yards behind him. Tries to nip through the inside as they go through Maggots. Now on the inside as they go to Beckett. But through the right-hander at Beckett, the slowest part of this Silverstone circuit. Still Webster leads up the short straight into Chapel Curve, the left-hander. Passing having to lean out over the sidecar wheel as they go through Chapel Curve, and now they're down the hanger straight, absolutely together. Will Bayley pull out of his slipstream? Coming into Stowe, he does just that. They're absolutely side by side with the back marker in the way. They come into Stowe, but Webster pulls across him to hold on to the lead, but the back marker will be there as they come out of the bend. What a tremendous scrap for the lead between the two top sidecar competitors. Bayley almost losing it, getting it sideways coming out of Stowe, and now it's Bayley getting up the inside of Webster as they go into club, but Webster still holding the advantage, going a little bit wide. Bayley also going a little bit wide, but they're hanging in there. Tremendous show this by Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon, Barry Sheen, and you're enjoying every moment of it, aren't you?
Yeah, really. It's very important corner, the last one before you come up the hill, because especially with a sidecar, because if you scrub off too much speed, you've lost it on the run up to Woodcote, so should be an interesting last lap.
Well, we're coming into the last lap now, and it's still Steve Webster leading, but it's just a matter of 5-6 yards from Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon as they rush through the start and finish area, up the straight, into Copse, up to Copse, and it's Bayley now trying to get up the inside of Webster as they go into Copse. I think he's done it, he has, yes, Bayley's through into the lead. So Bayley now leads from Webster and Hewitt. Now, can Bayley hang on? Plenty of places for Steve Webster to get back at him. He's so close behind him, just a matter of inches behind him at something approaching 120, 130 miles an hour as they go through Maggots, approaching the left, the right-hander at Beckett's. And now, Webster's got back in front. He's got inside him going into Beckett's, and he's done it. He's got inside him, yes, just holding the advantage, pushing him wide as they come into Chapel Curve. The two of them almost looked at each other then, but Bayley's back in front. Bayley gets in front as they dive into Chapel Curve, and now it's Bayley leading down Hanger Straight. So Bayley leads, just a matter of a yard in it, tucking his head behind the fairing of his Yamaha. Webster and Hewitt doing the same. And now we're looking at Webster trying to get to the inside as they come into Stowe. I think he's done it, yes. Webster braking hard as he goes in, but Bayley trying to get around the outside, side by side as they come out of Stowe corner. And now Bayley switching to the inside. They seem to touch as they come out of Stowe then. Webster leads into club on the very last lap, but it's Bayley got it on the inside. But no, Webster cuts across him once again. So Webster still leading, 7 or 8 yards in it, up the hill for the last time. Just half a mile from the finish. What a cracking sidecar race this is. But it's Webster now leading into that vital Woodcote bend. Surely now, Bayley's going to make his last final-ditch effort to get past the current British champions. Under the bridge, they come into the right-hander at Woodcote, approaching something like 110 miles an hour. He's blocked the door on him there, Webster. He's kept it tight, but Bayley's now trying to go around the outside, but he hasn't quite done it. Webster leads. Webster wins. Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt win the 90th round of the ACU, Shell Oil's British Transnational Sidecar Championship. They've also won the championship. They're the current British champions. They've won the championship again. No wonder they're smiling and waving to each other. No wonder Tony Hewitt's waving to the crowd. What a magnificent race between the two best sidecar crews in Britain at the moment. There are the winners, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt, the Yorkshire pair. In second place after a marvellous battle, Derek Bayley and Bryan Nixon. Let's just hope that Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt can do the same sort of thing in 8 days' time in Hockenheim when they go for the World Championship. But they've won the penultimate round of the championship. They're the 1986 British champions, Steve Webster and Tony Hewitt.
I don't know about you, but nothing on earth would induce me to be a passenger in one of those sidecars. We've got more motorcycles.